Hi, welcome to Property Leaders, and on today's show we have Tom Woodley from Woodley and Associates, who are a leasehold property management company. So Tom's company manages around 100 sites from Bournemouth to London, and we've got some really interesting stories for you today. Tom Woodley, welcome to the show.
Hi Tim, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be
That's
here.
Okay.
And sorry if all of your listeners have to hear me drone on for what was it, about an hour and a half, 2 hours? This
Let's
podcast?
see how we get on, and hopefully we can keep people interested, which I'm sure I can, because I know you've got an interesting story for sure. First question, always fire at people. What would be your definition of a leader?
I think you need to have a reason to put yourself in that position to start with, and there has to be a real drive and a pull in one direction. So, and also an appetite for to take a risk, which is very important, because suddenly you're going from working for somebody and having a guaranteed salary to really backing yourself right from the get-go.
Is that something, because that's interesting for people listening out there, listening to this video or this podcast, is that there's a lot of people in jobs right now who will be working in a company, and with social media these days, it looks like it's really easy to become someone who's a leader or an entrepreneur and start your own thing. How did you make that transition? What forced you to take that risk, as you said?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think firstly, from an outsider looking in, it could be seen as very easy to make noise in the modern day, particularly as we've got all these mediums, LinkedIn, new one, Clubhouse, that everyone seems to be on. Zoom and Teams since lockdown, and the current situation has become commonplace. Instead of meeting somebody for half an hour or an hour and driving, the same amount of time each way to go and see them, you could meet online, which in my mind probably isn't quite the same as meeting face to face. However, like we are today, it's very easy. I jumped out the car and jumped straight on a call from my last meeting. I'm currently at home rather than being in the office, which is all hustle bustle. So my home is 5 minutes currently from our Ringwood office. So that's very convenient. But going back to the question, I think what people portray over these mediums and what in real life is the case can sometimes be very different. And I think before making a decision to go out on your own rather than work for perhaps a larger company or somebody else, would be to make sure that you have the confidence and the attitude to work ethic, because like we were saying before we came online, I had my first day off in 2 years yesterday, forced for a family event. So I think you need to look at yourself and perhaps your commitments in life as well. In terms of your week, how much of that is dedicated to your 9 to 5? Is it a 9 to 5 currently? Could you put extra hours in? If the chips are down, or even if it's going very well, would you have the time to devote? So hopefully that provides an answer.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's really interesting. Definitely understand. It's good for people to understand what it really takes. Like you said, 2 years without a holiday, without a day off. That's, if you work in a normal job for a company, you get 20 days, 22 days, 28 days holiday. It's a very different, it's a lifestyle, isn't it? Almost. It's not just a job anymore.
Yeah.
It becomes it becomes everything.
Don't start
So
telling
how
the
did
team
you?
back at my office about 28 days holiday.
Yeah, no, we'll keep that bit. We'll cut that bit out for
Okay.
certain. What was your say? Let's go back to kind of the start, Tom. How did you get started in property, and why did you get started in property? Was it fortuitous, or was it just you kind of had it planned?
I think I went to school, sixth form college locally. I always felt that I wanted to make a difference in some sort of asset class. So whether it be finance, property, um, and anything which is financially based, really. So I see property as the biggest asset, well, usually that somebody will own. So I saw it as a safe option. I didn't go the standard route straight to university from sixth form college because I felt, we're both old Bournemouthians, and I felt that wasn't the route for me because I'd probably waste a lot of time and still not know what I wanted to do at the end of the usual university path. So I left it to Open University later, which something I did once I'd started with. I first of all started in Poole in leasehold property management. Prior to that, I was doing land and new homes with a national company, and I was actually employed by a manager called Ian Miller, who I've remained in contact with ever since, and I'll tell you the reason I mentioned his name shortly. And from there, I spent a lot of time training. I didn't have a great deal of knowledge around property when I first got into it, apart from buying my first flat down in Branksome Park, which is Poole, at the age of, I think I was 19. So bought very early.
Yeah. Okay. So young to get on the property ladder.
Yeah. At that time, you could, it was a lot easier. You could use a 5% deposit, or even Northern Rock, I think, were giving no deposit mortgages at that point. They'd actually pay you to buy a property.
Yeah, definitely different times.
So
sure.
it's very different from that now. So I actually, so having bought my first property, I was doing land and new homes at the time. I decided that I wanted to become a part of the management of the block. So it was eight flats there in a converted building. Some trees a tree was damaged in a storm, and the management company at the time weren't doing anything about it. So I decided to go out and get some quotes and send them the quotes with a little letter to say what I thought should happen next. All very polite, and this has happened. I didn't really know what the block management company did, other than they took your service charge monies at the time. And they wrote back and said, "Oh, thanks ever so much. You've done our job for us." Something that we'd appreciate a lot of our clients doing, although I don't think they would these days, because we'd be doing we'd be out of a job, really. But they actually called me into the office and asked me to come for an interview. So this was the director of the local block management company that looked after our site. And from there, the rest is history. I fell into leasehold property management, and I was with that company 7 years. So I went from being assistant property manager to property manager, and then on to be a senior member of the team there before they were bought out by a larger company. And at that time, that was probably the first of my rebellious decision making, I'd like to call it. So I decided that when they were bought out, I didn't like the way things were run by the new company there. I was due a company car upgrade, I remember, and I went to the managing director of they had an umbrella of a number of different subsidiary companies, of which this company were one, the one I was working for. And I said, I'd like a new company car because this one's 6 years old now. And he said, right, well, what are our profits like for the local office in which you work? And I said, it's all going very well. At that time, I was managing 89 sites. Just putting that into perspective, each of our property managers now at Woodley and Associates probably manage around 20 to 25 maximum each. So that's 3 times. Admittedly, I did have support staff as well, which they also have here. I was really chained to the desk, not able to put the love and attention into the portfolio that I wanted to. And I was asking for a new company car, which wasn't well received. The answer I got was, well, when an electric Ferrari comes out, perhaps that would be appropriate because of what you're asking for. So the director at the time was even joking that it was never going to happen. So I decided to look around for another position elsewhere. So I found myself looking for a more local company in Bournemouth Square, where I was offered the job right away on the spot. I told the managing director of the previous company, and he said, "You're not leaving." And I said, "What do you mean I'm not leaving?" They said, "Oh, come up to my office." So I went up to the office, which was about 3 hours away, and I was called up we're always called up for meetings at about 8 in the morning, so you had to leave at about 5 a.m. or something to get there on time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, you're not leaving?" And I said, "Well, I've handed in my resignation, and I'll be leaving in 3 weeks." And he said, "What is there we can do?" And I said, "Well, perhaps you could give me that electric Ferrari I've been asking for." So I don't think that they still haven't made an electric Ferrari.
No, I don't think they
No.
have. But what did you learn? It's interesting, Tom, but what did you, taking now that you've got your own company and you've got a team, what did you learn from that whole situation?
Sorry. I think so. I remember at the time I had to have a couple of blood tests for whatever reason. Probably something to do with my sense of humour, which they still haven't figured out what's wrong. But the office manager there said you have to take half a day's holiday, and I said, okay, well, that seems, I work late into the evening most days. I get to work early. Don't normally leave the office until at 6:30, 7 o'clock. It's a 9 to 5 job. Surely I could go and have a blood test, within office hours, and it's give and take. And the answer was no. You've got to take your half a day's holiday. So what I took away from that was you treat people in the same way that you expect to be treated as an employer. My team at Woodley and Associates, I always say, don't call me boss, or with, there's no hierarchy. All right, the buck stops with me, but we're all on the same level. We're all in this together. And if there's a failure or a problem within the company, which it does happen from time to time, then actually we're all supporting one another. There's no one is to blame. And from the perspective of the company, the name above the door is Woodley, so we have to really work together in order to resolve any problems. We don't have many issues at all in that way, actually, because we've reached a point where if someone's worried about something, they speak out, even if it shows them up. We have an office meeting every morning. We call it the 10 at 10, so it's supposed to be 10 minutes. It's normally about 40 minutes, and it's a running joke.
That's always a struggle, isn't it? Yeah.
But so yeah, a common goal, a well balanced team who are all on the same level is the secret really for us. And as a result, we've grown to managing just over 100 sites in 2 years, just over 2 years.
Yeah, which is a great achievement. When you started your company, did you start to form an idea of what you wanted the culture to be? Did you have that in the forefront of your mind, like I want this sort of culture within my business, or is it sort of something that's been quite organic and natural?
I think what I've experienced previously has helped mould the setup. So we've gone straight to a team of well qualified individuals who have the knowledge to provide a good communication base. So there's no smoke and mirrors. If something comes through as an inquiry, there's a problem, they can pick up the phone and answer questions. So it's not a case that all of the issues need to be referred back. I say issues in leasehold property management. It's a stream of tasks coming in at any one time.
Issues.
Issues is probably the wrong word. But
no, challenges or problems to solve. Yes. Who is the most influential person so far in your career, or is there been multiple people that have been very influential to you?
So the firm I was working for in Bournemouth, the local company, they introduced me to a site down in Sandbanks. Now, one of the directors at that site, we got on very well right from the start, and he ended up asking me my advice as to how they should move. They were acquiring a freehold at the time. They had major works in progress. Then there was actually a leak on a weekend, which I received a call on I think it was a Saturday afternoon. Got onto a local contractor. It was a call we had an emergency out of hours system in place, so they rang me, and I dropped everything I was doing, at a barbecue or something, and worked for an hour on the phone to get the contractor there the next morning, which was Sunday. I met the contractor there. It was a major leak following flooding into the whole of the ground floor communal area. So it was quite serious, and we had to mobilise a team to get it all watertight and dry again. Which if you're living in a multi-million-pound property, there's a lot of people there that are very pedantic, and then I think that sort of an issue would be a problem to absolutely anyone, and people can't sleep, and it's so.
Do you find the tolerance level is shorter, shall we say, when you're dealing with more expensive?
Not necessarily. It can sometimes go the other way, actually. So if they've got 4 or 5 high-end apartments, to be honest, they're not interested apart from the time that they're there. So if they're living there, you're right. If they're living there, it can make a difference. I personally got involved to the extent that I wanted to get this sorted for them, which isn't any different from how I deal with an emergency anyway. But following that, they bought me a bottle of champagne, and which you're not supposed to take the Anti-Bribery Act and all that, so I shouldn't mention it. But no, we definitely had a bottle of champagne. They were so appreciative that I think we had lunch together, and we've actually remained friends ever since. And this particular couple, he ran a commercial, and they had a business centre or 2 business centres in central London, so really he's been a mentor to me since then. probably for the last 5, 6, 7 years, 6 or 7 years, I would say.
And that was
Just
completely by
through
chance. You
no,
didn't seek out that
just
mentor.
something that
Yeah.
happened and if I hadn't acted in that way, 7 years ago, in that instance, and hadn't shown that I care, to going over and above, that relationship probably wouldn't have happened. So I think being in one place at any given time, by chance, you say by chance, but then you think, well, how did I react in that circumstance that led us to form this friendship? And you know, he won't mind me saying, his name's John Lang, and he has guided me through, some of the pitfalls in setting up my own company, and having done it and formed a very successful commercial industry himself all those years ago. He's now in his I probably shouldn't say, but he's at retirement age, let's say. So having that figurehead and having a sounding board at times has been really motivating for me. And if you go and sit in his apartment and look out to sea, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, I need to get to a point where I'm in a similar position where I can do what I like. Money doesn't really motivate me as much as it used to these days, because I enjoy time a lot more where I haven't had the time. So there's a trade up there as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I think so. That would be a real figurehead. Yeah.
One of your key,
Sure.
one of your key mentors. What is how important do you think it is for a leader? Let's just say you've got someone who's maybe sort of coming to the end of their career, but they're still a leader, and then someone in kind of your age. Is it more important, or do you think you should always have mentors, no matter how old you are?
I think I don't think age really comes into it, because I don't. I mean, I speak with some of my contacts on a regular basis who are maybe sort of 65, 60. I've got I wouldn't say close friends. I'd say more business relationships of that sort of age, where we'll get together and talk about current market conditions, legal problems we're finding. Then again, this morning I was with a leasehold specialist, Matthew Lewis, who's just started up with another firm, doing leasehold and common hold expert advice. So meeting up with him, he's quite a few years younger than me, and I'd look up to him as a mentor in that particular field. I don't know what we offer him that makes him keen to come in for a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning with the whole team, but there's a relationship there, and there is a mutual respect, I think. So it's not about age. I think it's a like-mindedness and having just a common interest, really.
Absolutely. What's obviously we're now May, coming out of hopefully the pandemic, COVID, all of that good stuff. Not good stuff, should I say? Hopefully going back to normal in June soon. How has it been? What's been the big? I'm interested to see, because obviously there's been some quite some tragic stuff that's obviously happened, to do with leasehold and blocks of apartments and how they've been built, and obviously we've had the pandemic as well. Over your career, what's been the kind of biggest change
I think
within the industry, or is that something
probably
that's
the
coming?
upcoming ground rent ban, which was announced in the Queen's opening of Parliament speech recently. That's going to have quite a large effect on on the way that the industry, particularly the leasehold flat industry moves ahead. And so a lot of our clients are opting for either share of freehold developments or passing management obligations to companies such as ourselves, where there's no particular mechanism in place to manage the site. So that's of a current topic, I think. There's a common hold system, which is something I was mentioning earlier, that was proposed previously, which never took off. And I think only about 12 sites in the whole of the country have a common hold lease. So instead of a freeholder with lots of leaseholders underneath owning flats in their building, the common hold setup is everyone owns a share in the same company, and there's a common lease, so that all of the clauses there are mirrored no matter what. Yes.
So everyone's treated the same. Yeah. For people listening that maybe don't understand, obviously in layman's terms, with the ground rent ban, can you just give us a small explanation of why that's come about, and then what's your opinion on that? What's your thoughts?
I think the reason it's come about is so there are a number of leasehold houses which were built by I would say, go as far as to say, unscrupulous developers who put in place ground rents, or very high ground rents. A house is quite an unusual situation because, in a house you'd expect you'd be in control of your own destiny, really. You're a standalone building, so why should a house have a ground rent, and the structure of the building is the freehold? So why should it be owned by somebody else? I mean, most houses have, if they're in a shared community, have a covenant, which a covenant would then give them the obligations over the common ground, so like a shared drive or like an open park or whatever it might be that they'd all collectively own, or all pay into a fund to manage. But with with leasehold houses, with ground rents on that sort of asset, it seems very unfair, unless the price is significantly reduced, as a result. So that's one reason.
Why do you think these companies? Why did these companies
I think
do that? Was it purely financial gain?
I think the opportunity was there. The other opportunity was to increase ground rents via maybe a doubling term. So ground rents in a lease would double. The most the highest level would be probably a 5-year doubling term, which was seen towards probably only up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that's all been debated in the House of Parliament, and it's brought us to the point where a standard ground rent was discussed, and actually it's reached the point where not even a standard ground rent will be acceptable. It's actually a full ban. So that's changed the setup for all of the new build developers that you and I will be working with, for better or for worse. Well, in my view, it's horses for courses. So the system we had was good to a point. It had to be regulated. However, if you take a block, say you took a block of 100 flats, we're about to take a similar block on in Poole, actually, as a company. Now, you give that freehold to 100 people, so you've got 100 different views on how the management of the block should be run, how the costs of maintaining the block should be paid, what should be done. and then policing health and safety legislation points. Say there was a big issue with, I don't know, the smoke alarms and all the fire alarms in the building were broken and had to be replaced. Now, who's in place where there's no freeholder or no management company to enforce that? Okay, they could get the fire service in, who would slap an order on the property to have the work carried out. But then, if people don't want to pay, there's no mechanism in place to then regulate that scenario and get things resolved. So I think, in removing any freehold entity, you're only going to want to be a freeholder if you receive some sort of income. It's quite dangerous in a way where, in a lower value property or a very large site, there's no sort of common direction. So that's my view in part. On the whole, I think it was about time that some of these very high ground rent levels were regulated. So in part, it's good. And a lot of sites, you will see sites where the flats are of a reasonable value. Prices are going up even at the moment after all of these uncertain and negative times we've had. Prices are still going up now. So, but I think for people to be in control of their own destiny is good, and to have the ability to look after the sites and pay what they feel is reasonable is positive. So that's.
What's your no, absolutely. What's your prediction, Tom, that you think will happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Ground rents will come. Well, ground rents will be banned, in my view. Early 22 is likely. 2022. Maybe the announcement will, the ascension to Parliament of the ban will happen at the end of this year, 2021. So from that time, I feel that there will be no ground rents at all throughout the market, which will seriously affect the developers' bottom lines on new build developments, because it removes that extra freehold value.
Where do you see the opportunities? What opportunities do you see?
So I think it puts everyone on a level playing field. So, the historic leases and the properties with ground rents will obviously still be valued at what they are. Properties without ground rents, the sort of modern age, could be slightly more valuable, where they're not beholden to, a hierarchy. Yes, yeah.
So many restrictions.
There could be a benefit there to people buying new build properties, or I'm sure there will be. However, I would make sure that you're buying into something where the management is regulated and the setup has been checked by your lawyer, and you're happy with the lease that you're signing if you're buying a flat. People don't read their leases. You buy a flat at, say, 300,000-400,000, and people can't be bothered to read the contract that they're signing for 125 years or 999 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but do you know what? I think my viewpoint on that would be, it's the language used in the leases. A lot of them are for just an average, person who doesn't work within property management or leasehold management. It's tough to read those things. I'm saying from personal experience, and then to not only to actually take it all in, but then to understand it and be able to break it down into something that you understand. Because lawyers, solicitors are, I would say, I'm going out on a bit of a limb here, but they kind of like to use their own language as well, which is not always the most
Agreed.
simplified way of explaining something to someone. So there's that challenge as well, isn't there? That the advice you're getting as a buyer is from your solicitor, who isn't able to simplify it for you. So actually,
There's an opportunity there, Tim. So if
empathize.
any keen lawyer would put
New business
together
idea.
a schedule of bullet points to simplify what's in the lease. So say you've got 50 or 60-year-old lease, or even older, which doesn't make a lot of sense to the everyday flat buyer or even house buyer. What about the lawyer or their team spending some time, or even the property managers, dare I say it, putting together a schedule of simplifying the terms so that before you buy your flat, you know what you're signing up to.
Definitely. I think there's definitely something out there, because I've not seen anything like that. There's definitely, if you can help people and solve a problem for them, and obviously it's such a huge risk getting into something that you're not quite sure. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, and whether something could come of that, for sure. Going back to what's been your biggest failure, Tom? Have you had any moments where you've really thought, oh my God, this is it, might not have this business anymore, or something really bad has happened where you've been really concerned?
Probably.
And how did you learn from it?
The threat of losing a significant portion of sites we manage over a decision we made as a company. So standing by your guns, really, on a something that wasn't within your remit. So I won't say exactly what, because everything's always can change. But so if we were asked to do something which I wasn't comfortable with, which was outside the terms of what was agreed and what was in a lease, so it was deemed an improvement in my view, and I was tested to make a decision whether or not to put in place some further arrangements to improve and benefit a site. So my view was, well, it's not in the lease. You have to have a collective agreement from everybody at the site in order to pass something like that through, no matter how much sense it makes to put it in place. Because if it's not in the contract, then somebody could turn around at a later date and say, well, that wasn't something we agreed on, so who's going to pay for that then? And we'd have to hold our hands up and say, well, I think we've got a bit of a problem here. So I mean we had about, at the time, probably about 20% of our business with this one client, and we decided to stick by our guns and carry on with the status quo, which was the right decision in my view. So we were actually disinstructed. This was on the Friday, and we rekindled the relationship with the client. I think it was on about the Tuesday. So I had it's always Friday night, isn't it, when something goes wrong, when you can't get hold of anybody, and you've got the whole weekend worrying about. I was thinking, that's quite a lot of money, 20% of our business, not 20% of our profit, 20% of turnover as well. So there's other factors there, staffing costs, and suddenly you're counting on your fingers. We've got a few months left of people's salaries, so it's money in the bank, isn't it? But so yes, I'm glad we stuck by our guns. It's a relationship, but you can only go so far, and you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to believe in the systems you put in place. And if you bend in an instant over a decision that even if it costs you business, even if it loses you an opportunity, if you don't believe in the methodology and the ethics of what you're doing, then how can you call yourself a good profitable business? If you're not doing things in the right way. People ask me how I sleep with all these emails flying around. Nikki in the office asked me today, how can you carry on and do something else when we've got to wait until tomorrow to hear back on this is an insurance premium and we're trying to get the cost down? And I said, well, I've been doing it. I've been doing it 15 years and I've been able to sleep most nights. I mean, early on in my career, I did worry about things a lot more. And if people upset me, then I take it personally. But you realise that the general public are unpredictable, and there are some nice people out there, but there's also some really difficult people out there that expect the earth, and so you can't keep everybody happy is the answer, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find, say, it's interesting you said about like you're able to sleep at night because you're proud of what you're doing, you're doing things the right way. Obviously, there's still stresses with business for everyone when you're running your own business, especially if you've got people to look after as well who are relying on you to have a job, basically. Simple as that. Do you find that do you find it hard to switch off? Do you think about work most of your waking day, would you say?
I think,
or do you find time to switch off?
do. I mean, I do train every morning, which helps. So I go to the gym. I do a sort of team session, do CrossFit workouts a lot of the time. Just to sort of switch off. I find if I'm on my own going for a run, I'm still thinking about things, so that's no good. So I have to be in an environment where I'm working together, and people are watching what I'm doing, so I don't slow up and go and hide. During the lockdown, we were on a Zoom call, so everyone would say, "Oh, where's Tom gone?" So what I do is I do what my capacity let me do, and jumping up and down, pull-ups and sit-ups and all this, and then I'd go off camera and have a rest for a bit. So I'd say my camera was either broken, don't tell anyone this, but either broken or I'd obviously set the camera up just out of shot for the next exercise, but really I'd be having a rest.
It's interesting though, so you don't find so when you're on your own, you still think about it, but you need to be as part of a team and be talking and contributing to some sort of exercise to be able to fully.
That's an hour each day. I do work. From when I get in the office in the morning, I get home probably about 6:30 at night. Have some tea, and then just carry on my laptop. It's nice to have a podcast on in the background, or I'll tell you my secret guilty pleasure, a bit of $1 Million Listing. So then get rattling through them,
cool.
Having something in the background does help, I think.
Yeah, just to keep you. Do you going back to your morning kind of routine? So training every morning. Do you have any other little? Are you a person?
Yes, I think anything that keeps my life simple, in terms of the process. I'm not very good at booking a day off, a day at the weekend to go on an adventure, or I'd love to do that, So perhaps as time goes on, as we get larger as a firm, we're up to 8 people now. As part of the team, we've got a wider team as well. We've got part-time, team members that come in, but I think as I find a role for everybody, perhaps give a little bit away of my own responsibilities as well. I'd like to find a little bit more time for myself and for the family, and to make more of my free time, because it's not all about work. That's what I've come to learn. You can benefit financially and you can be proud of what you do, but at the same time you've got to have something to work hard towards as a goal in order. But otherwise, you see actually this is all becoming a bit morbid, but you see your life go by, and you
That's
suddenly
all right. Don't worry.
you're 45 or 50, and actually, all right, you're looking towards retirement, but why not enjoy the time you've got now? It's just coming up to summer at the moment, and we're coming out of lockdown, so what's everyone doing? It's nice to get out and about, but to have a bit of time to go away and to do other things would be nice.
I think it's finding, like you said, Tom, it's finding that good work-life balance, isn't it? Which is
Yes.
very difficult for anyone that's running their own business. And once you've got a team of people looking after you and you're responsible, it's really hard. So hopefully you can find that balance that you're looking for at some point.
I'd say for anyone thinking of starting up themselves, and going it alone, or like we're very fortunate to bring other people in at an early stage, through planning mostly, but I'd say probably write off at least a year and a half. So you've got to have a year and a half where no long holidays. If you're planning on getting married in that time, I'd probably get married instead. Having kids, just make sure that you've got that time to devote. I mean, I was offered an opportunity to swap my existing qualifications for building surveyors qualifications. So I'm an associate surveyor, but I haven't got my EP6, which is the full blown. I mean, it would mean that I'd be able to go out and do full surveys and give opinions on structural issues, and I know a lot about that already, but actually having it on paper is slightly different. And they offered me, I think it was a 6 or a 9 month swap, so I could use my existing qualification and then go through a short course to fast forward to obtain that. And I said, look, I can't do it at the same time. I just haven't got the time. And actually, what would the earning capacity, what would the change in lifestyle be as a result of obtaining that? I don't think anyone would see me any differently.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Always lots of decisions to make, obviously, as a business leader. What's the one thing you wish you had known before you started a career in kind of leasehold management, property management?
Do I wish I'd known? I've never taken life too seriously, so I'll always have a laugh and a joke. But sometimes I've taken that too far. So maybe I thought I had the relationship with someone that allowed me to to be a little bit more friendly, a little bit more lighthearted. But people are all different, and perhaps you always have to wait for the other person in a business relationship, I think, to let that sort of front down a little bit. So I've had people in the past say, please can you talk to me properly, or please can you could you be a bit more serious, or why are you smiling? I've had that quite a lot. Why are you smiling? We're all sat around talking about something. And I mean, I find it very difficult to keep a straight face where I find something funny, even in a serious situation. If it's something which perhaps is of a great concern to somebody else, and I think actually we can sort it out like this, and I'm smiling because I know the answer. Sometimes you've got to pick a set. So I think perhaps I mean, you shouldn't worry about what people think about you, otherwise you wouldn't be yourself. That's another point to put across. So
it's interesting what you say. I think it's about reading people and understanding, like you said, that everyone's different, and you don't always have, you should be yourself, but also be aware that other people aren't exactly like you.
Sometimes to get ahead, you've got to spend time with some of those people that you wouldn't normally put yourself in a room with on a, after work. You wouldn't want to necessarily go and have a beer or a coffee with, or.
Yeah. I think generally I'm a bit of an optimist, and I think most people are pretty good people, and you just got to give people a chance, because we all, as much as people say they don't, it's really hard not to judge a book by its cover until you get to know what's in the book, until you start reading the book and understanding people. So yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to finish off with one more question for you, Tom, so I'm just conscious of your time. For anyone listening, hopefully they've got an interest in property. And, what would you say are the 3 most important skills for someone to become successful in a property,
I think the first
industry, whatever that is,
has got to be communication and relationships surrounding that. Do you want me to expand on that, or do you just want quick fire answers? Okay, I can waffle on.
Let's go quick fire answers, just because we're conscious of time. It's all good. It's all good. We can do part 2.
Log on
mate.
though, will
it's
they,
all
for
good.
Part 2?
So communication and relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. So communication and relationship.
Sorry, I'm looking for 2 more, aren't I?
What do you think?
So I think.
2 more.
You've got to have a commitment and appetite for further learning. So there's no good coming in and just plodding along, just hoping that everything will materialize, that you'll know what you're doing within 5 minutes. You've really got to make that the key step to immerse yourself in knowledge sources. Go online, look at the information available, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors support website, look at the area in which you're working, look at the surrounding areas, look at the different clientele. If you're looking to enter new build property, look at the developers in your area, speak with statistic companies locally. If you look and see, who's building the most in the area, who's what the price per square foot is. People don't usually ask that in this country, unless you're in central London for some reason, or the cities. So just think outside the box a little bit, and look at the market as well, and be prepared to diversify that. If you're not in the right area, put yourself in the right area. If you're not sat next to somebody that's going to provide you with the knowledge that you need, go and put yourself in a library or coffee shop, or start talking to people. Make sure that you're not alone. I was looking for another one, but I think
we've got quite a few there.
And the last one,
I've reeled quite a few off.
Don't be afraid to put your money where your mouth is. So if you feel that you want to invest in a small property, which you've already bought something, you're looking to do buy to rent or something like that, or if you see you've got a freehold opportunity or a shop or whatever it might be, don't be afraid to test yourself. So if it works on paper, then why not give it a go? You've only got one life to live, so why not make the most of it? And
go for it,
what's the worst that can happen? I always think. I thought that when I started my own business, I can always go and work for somebody else. So why not give it your best shot?
Definitely, mate. That's a really good point to finish.
Do you want a last smile at the end? Absolutely. Or is the last smile all right?
Thank you so much for your time, legend. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed that.
And catch up with you soon. Cheers.